Okay, we are back. This should be part five. Here I am. There's a shop here. Just talk to the NPCs, go through the different tabs of one, two, three, four at the top with the different shops. You can find NPCs that are selling gems. I decided to see if there were any gems that could be useful for what it is I specifically wanted, and I ended up finding a gem that I thought would help a little bit better with killing enemies and getting things set up. I don't usually use Fireball. I've never really done much with Fireball, and I decided to go for Spark instead. I was recently playing Path of Exile 2. I had a build with Spark. I thought Spark and Path of Exile 1 would be worth giving a try since I've never really tried it, so I figured I'd do something different. And of course, I was hovering over these gems to have a better understanding of what they can do, and I figured I should be kind of giving a better explanation of what you can read about gems to have a better way of deciding whether or not you want to use them. So let's do that now. Okay, so when you hover your mouse over a gem or your cursor over the gem, you will see the gem's name at the very top. Underneath it, you will see usually two or more words that are in gray. These words that are in gray are actually descriptions for the gem you are using and give you an idea of what it is this gem is classified as and what all it can do. An example, especially that you can see in the footage, is that a good chunk of the spells that I hover over, the gems that I hover over, they are spells, and you can tell because the name will say something like Spark or Fireball or something of that sort. And then right underneath it in gray, it will say spell and AoE, and you might see something like projectile and lightning and duration. These are tags that these spells have. And these tags are basically what specific properties will apply to these spells. So, for example, if you end up having a spell or a gem that is not a spell, it might say attack. And attack means that this gem is considered an attack gem. Meaning, all that really means is if you end up picking something in your skill tree, or if you pick up a piece of gear and it gives you maybe a certain elemental damage, 2 attacks, lightning damage, 2 attacks, fire damage, 2 attacks, it means that this gear specifically works with the gem that says attack in it. If it does not say attack, then chances are that gear does not work towards that gem, and so on and so forth. So if you find gear that gives you increased lightning damage, but your gem does not do lightning damage, then chances are if your other gear does not say add lightning damage, then there's a pretty good chance you are not doing lightning damage. So having increased lightning damage is kind of pointless because if your lightning damage is 0 and you get 0 multiplied by 20, it's still going to be 0, right? So that's just something to keep an eye on much later on. But looking at these tags in your gems will definitely help you in the long haul for when it's time to upgrade those gems. Outside of the tags, these gems will also have the description of what they do, so just hovering over them and reading through them can better help you figure out what path it is you want to take. And outside of that, that is pretty much it for gems. They're pretty straightforward, and they are essentially like the backbone to your entire run for everything that you use because they are basically enhanced basic attacks. So now we're on to skill points. At the bottom of your screen, you will see a little plus sign. That plus sign is telling you that you have a skill point that you can put into your skill tree. If there is a number beside that plus sign that is bigger than 1, then that's how many skill points that you can put into your skill tree. Your skill tree, for people who do not usually play games like these, is essentially a map that you can use in order to increase your character's overall usefulness. It can give you more damage, it can give you more survivability, it can give you more health, it can give you more shields. It can basically help cater the way that you use weapons, as well as cater the way to what points you put in deeper down the line. So focusing on your general skill tree and what it is you decide to use with it will definitely come in handy later down the line. Okay. A lot of people usually talk about the skill tree being very overwhelming and terrifying. So let's just rip the band-aid off and get to the basic know-hows of the skill tree. There's going to be plenty of videos from plenty of people who break down the skill tree. It changes every league, but it changes usually very slightly. Nothing so major that you have to like relearn a skill tree or something, right? So the basic understanding, to make things really simple, is the skill tree is a giant circle. And this circle is actually a mix up of every individual character's access to the tree. Each character starts from a different point of access. So if you're a red character, like a warrior who uses straight red, or a Templar who uses red and blue, or a duelist that uses red and green, then you're going to be touching the side of the tree that's mostly red. The warrior will definitely get that red, but the Templar will get the side that's red and starts bleeding into blue. The duelist will get the side that's red and starts bleeding into green. That way the duelist can touch the green side and the red, the Templar can touch the blue side and the red, and the warrior can touch strictly the red side. Because chances are these specific colors match whatever gear and or gems that they need. I spoke about the red. It's the same for the blue. The witch is the blue, so she's gonna touch the side of the tree that's majority blue. The Templar is red and blue, so he's gonna touch the side that is red bleeding into blue, and vice versa, which is just blue bleeding into red, right? Meaning that he has access to more red than the witch does, because he is a red blue and not just a blue. And then, of course, we have the assassin, who is a green blue, which is technically also a blue green, and he's going to touch a part of the blue and bleed into the green. And also vice versa, he'll touch a part of the green and bleed into the blue. Either way, you have primaries, right? They're just one solid color. They can touch other colors, but not like the other characters can. So the primaries would be the witch. So far that we've talked about the witch and the warrior, which the warrior would be the marauder, right? They are the main colors. They have the most strengths in those specific colors because that's how they're designed. And then you have the mixes, right? The Templar is mixed. The Shadow, I think I called him an assassin. He plays kind of like an assassin, right? But the Shadow is mixed. The Duelist is mixed. And then, of course, the green, which would be the Ranger. So the Ranger has majority green. The Shadow has a green-blue, meaning he starts in green and bleeds into blue, and vice versa. He can start in a blue and bleed in a green. And then we have Duelist, who is a red-green, meaning he starts in the red and bleeds into green, or he starts into green and then bleeds into red. And you might be asking, okay, well, what's the difference between the main color characters like the witch, the marauder, and the ranger, and the mixed characters like the duelist, the shadow, and a templar? And the difference is that the witch has the freedom to touch more of her blue without being restricted by potentially being blocked by a green or a red, right? Whereas the Shadow, the Duelist, the Templar, all these mixed characters, right? They can bleed into either or color, but because they have the opportunity to bleed into either or, it's kind of like their side of the tree is where things start to become halved. So, starting out as a witch, I can touch this blue piece and that blue piece and that blue piece and that blue piece, and I don't have to worry about missing out on blue pieces. But if I were to start as a Templar, I can start off on this blue piece and that blue piece and that blue piece. But if I want to touch the same blue pieces the witch is touching, it's going to take more points to reach what the witch has because the witch's starting point is deeper in the blue than a Templar's is. So, yeah, the half characters are kind of like a double-edged sword. If you're wanting to go something more towards what a whole character has, you're gonna have to sacrifice more skill points. Meaning that if you were to reach to the point that a witch is at, and you're playing a shadow or a Templar, a witch could be a level 10 and hit a specific point that really benefits what she's doing. But that shadow or Templar might have to be level 15 or 20 to hit that point because they did not start in the same place that a witch starts. But also, likewise, if a witch wants to have certain points that a shadow or a Templar may have, she's gonna have to sacrifice extra points just to bleed out into the red or just to bleed out into the green, right? So you kind of just mess around with stuff, read what little nodes do in a passive tree, and you work your way from there. Now, with all of that being said, you can see that I refer to these as nodes. I usually hear people call them nodes and notables and all of these things. We'll try to keep it simple, right? These little circles that you have in your passive tree, the small ones I will be referring to as nodes, and the big ones I will be referring to as notables. The notables have special names like that Arcanist Dominion. And then the nodes will be significantly smaller and have less upgrades. So a notable, like right there, Enduring Bond, you see it has 3 lines. I was talking about increased duration and minion this and minion that. And then a small node, like those beginning energy shields, will just give you things like extra energy shield and I believe even extra mana, right? So you usually shoot for notables because you can have something extra to boost. And in order to hit that notable, you will have to connect the little nodes in order to do so. It might come off a little confusing right now because I'm not outright showing me doing it, but throughout the rest of the videos, you will see me doing it. And no matter what character you pick, you can pick what it is you think benefits that character best and just start climbing along in your own way and figuring out what feels most fun to you during that time. And if you hit a wall or if you get frustrated, it's gonna be fine. Take your time, just keep playing until things start feeling a little more normal. To get to this screen, you can hit P if you're using a mouse and keyboard. If you're using a controller, it's a completely different menu that you can sift through. Should be under the same menu that you open your inventory with. And you can just tab over to the skill tree. For me specifically, I'm trying to make a playthrough where I get to use minions. So I went to the search bar at the very top. If you're using a mouse and keyboard, you can see it's at the top right beside the word that says skills. If you're using a controller, I apologize. I'm sure there's a way to type in there with a controller. I'm just not entirely sure how. but I go to the search bar and I type in the word minion. Um, and what I'm looking for are skill points that are tied to minions because I already have my first minion gem, which is Raise Zombie. And you might notice that when I type in minion, the nodes that have the word minion in them glow white. Even if it's not specifically tied to something dealing with a minion, if the title has the word minion, like Dominion, then it shows. But also the stats that have the word minion in a description also show. So if it's relating to something that I'm specifically trying to do, it will glow and uh, we can work with that information from there. So if you are utilizing a skill that does spell, you can type in spell. It will show the passives that glow, that help or hurt or deal with spell. Same if you type in attack. Same if you type in sword or dagger or mace or um, hammer or whatever other type of weapon or ability or something that it is you're searching for. Okay, so this is pretty much the bare bones of the tutorial. So far, we've covered, a pretty like light touch dealing with gear, dealing with skills, dealing with the UI tutorial. From this point, it's going to be just play by plays, I suppose might be the term. I will kind of break down things that I am doing, talk about them whenever I see them, and just have general footage of me playing in the background. So if you have any questions about anything, feel free to ask. But a lot of these recordings stretch out to like 4 to 5 hours at a time of me playing. So I might not show the complete 4 to 5 total hours. I might cut some stuff up or have like some royalty free music or something playing in the background while just showing my entire run through everything. And once again, if I do touch on anything that might be a little different or might be worth talking about, I will speak on it to explain things. And if you have any questions about anything, feel free to ask in the comments below.